So transitioning to the NFL, I talked about there are a lot of wide receiver news in the NFL that I'm going to break down in just a moment. After this, some news in New York with the Giants and the Rams. You are not going to want to miss that. Stay tuned for that. That's coming up in the next 5-10 minutes. But first, we stay in Pittsburgh. JuJu Smith-Schuster has re-signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 1-year deal worth $8 million. Initially, it was reported that it was a deal worth $7.5 million. He got an extra $500,000 signing bonus to push it up to $8 million. He had apparently received lucrative offers from a couple division rivals and even conference rivals. I know that the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens made a play at him, even offered him slightly more money for that 1 year to go play with them. Even the Eagles threw out a multi-year contract worth more in value than this offer from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And yet he decides to stay. He decides to stay in Pittsburgh. And this is a guy who's had the third most receiving yards in the NFL before the age of 23. Last year, he had a little bit of a down year, although he still had 97 catches and 9 touchdowns, which was a career best and a career high, but only 831 receiving yards. In fact, his 8.6 yards per catch ranked him 126th out of 153 qualified players. He kind of got demoted a little bit behind Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson in the offense for Pittsburgh. Big Ben was starting to target those guys a little bit more than JuJu Smith-Schuster. But the reality is, in the Pittsburgh Steelers' history of their organization, in their modern era, he's just the third wide receiver to receive a second contract. Think about that. Hines Ward and Antonio Brown are the only 2 wide receivers in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers to receive a second contract. And I don't think you could have given it to a better individual, to a better player. Obviously, this year, some of his off-the-field antics drew some criticism. He was kind of known as being this diva this year, a little bit more flamboyant, was posting all these videos at midfield of him dancing on TikTok. That obviously got a lot of attention. And eventually Mike Tomlin had to say, listen, man, we need you to be focused more on the play on the field than your Mick Jagger moves off the field. And for me, one of the things that I liked about the NFL, that I've appreciated, especially recently, is that a lot of these players are starting to be well compensated for their play. Don't get me wrong. I am happy for players getting theirs and for earning those big paydays. Shout out to Dak Prescott, Trent Williams. There's so many guys. The list goes on and on of players who received their lettuce. I'm happy for them. But it was kind of refreshing to see a really likable guy, a really personable guy remain with the team that originally drafted him. There's something refreshing about that. And it's not just the loyalty aspect, because we know that loyalty is kind of thrown out the window when it comes to the business side. We know executives don't look at loyalty as they don't view it as importantly as perhaps they should, and that we know the players are deserving of. But what's nice is when you see a prominent young wide receiver, again, who's playing a prominent position like the wide receiver position is, who's starting to ascend and decide, you know what, I want to stay on at least a 1-year deal with the original team that drafted me. And again, he taking less money to remain in Pittsburgh. Had some better offers that I highlighted just a couple minutes ago. And what I've liked about JuJu Smith-Schuster, he's always been a good locker room guy. I don't think you can quantify the importance of having a good locker room guy. He puts his ego out the door. He's selfless. He's a hard worker. He's a gritty player. Fits the model that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are grind city. They're Steel City. When you play the Pittsburgh Steelers that have been known for being this franchise, this defense-oriented franchise. You know when you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to a mill. You're going to get grinded down. You're going to have to earn your stripes, earn your victory every time you step out onto Heinz Field or you play them at home in your stadium. And JuJu Smith-Schuster embodies what it means to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it'd be weird to see him play for another franchise when his whole makeup fits the model of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And more importantly, what this deal tells me is that this isn't just about being loyal. This is not about being loyal. This is about JuJu Smith-Schuster wanting to play at least one more season with Big Ben Roethlisberger. This isn't about trying to alleviate the cap situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think he cares about that. This is about Big Ben Roethlisberger, who has helped transform his career, has helped transcend his career, helped him take this next step to ascend in the NFL wide receiving lore. That's been his go-to guy as far as advice, as far as assistance, and Big Ben is returning for 1 year. So JuJu says, the hell with a long-term deal. I want to play with my companion at least one more season before he retires. That's what this is about. It's not about X's and O's. JuJu Smith-Schuster wants to play with Big Ben Roethlisberger one more year before he retires. It's that simple. That's simple. And it's just a nice change of pace when you've got an unselfish guy like this who opts for the culture over his own individual interests in this particular case. And I'm not advocating for it. I'm merely pointing out that this is the case. And it's similar to Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin returned to Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers. He returned because of the culture. Now, granted, different circumstances. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers just won the Super Bowl. So part of it is to attempt a repeat, right? That's certainly the case. But he also loves the culture in Tampa Bay. And yes, he also signed that 1-year franchise tag worth way more. So the situation's different. But JuJu Smith-Schuster cares more about the style of play in Pittsburgh and about the personnel versus collecting more money for himself. And I think that can be really commendable. And I'm looking forward to seeing him finish out this next season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm curious to see how they're going to do with Big Ben and that entire roster.